Welcome back, guys. In this video we are going to talk about a module in AngularJS. Now, what is a module? You can think of a module as a container for different parts of your app. For example, controllers, services, filters, directives. Most applications have a main method that instantiate and wires together the different part of the application. AngularJS don't have a main method. Instead, it has a module. So what are the benefits of modules? There are several advantages to this approach actually. So the declarative process is easier to understand. You can package code as reusable modules. The module can be loaded from any order because modules delay execution. Unit testing only have to load relevant modules, which keeps them fast. So end-to-end test can use modules to override configuration. Alright, so now we're going to create a module for our application. We can create a module inside our index.html file, but this is not a best practice. The whole purpose of using your AngularJS framework is to break apart your application code. So you have a controller, you have a directives, you have a model, so you can use those components wherever you want in your application. So let's go and create a module in external file, and we will link that file inside our index.html file. I'm going to go to app folder. I'm going to right click here and create a new file, and I'm going to call this file app.js. Now we have app.js. We're going to link this file in our index.html. So WebStorm has this functionality. I can drag and drop the file. Now, if you don't have this WebStorm IDE, then you can just write this line. Now, there's a problem here. So we have our browser interpreter coming here and reading our code from app.js. But it's not going to work because it doesn't know about the AngularJS library. So we need to have this file after we load our angular.js library. So I'm going to push this down, all the way down. So now the interpreter will run jQuery first and the bootstrap and then angular.js and angular-root.js and then our file. Now we're going to go to app.js file. Now let's create a module for our app. So we type angular.module, and inside that we add a single quotes and the name of our module. So we're going to simply write my app, and then add a comma, and it takes an array of dependencies. So later on, if we want to add a dependency of routing to our Angular application or dependency of animation or anything else, we have to type that in. We have to load that into our Angular application. For now, we just leave that empty because we don't have any dependency to load. Now, this simple line creates a module. We can write this a different way as well. We can add a variable, so var, and we can say my app is equal to angular.module, and then name of the module, and then array of dependencies. Okay, now we have created the module. Now first thing we need to create is a controller. Let me explain to you what is a controller first. AngularJS application mainly relies on controllers to control the flow of data in application. A controller is defined using ng-controller directive. A controller is a JavaScript object containing attributes, properties, and function. Each controller accepts scope as a parameter, which refers to an application module that controller is to control. Alright, so now we're going to go and create a controller, and then we will add that controller into our index.html file. So we're going to use the same variable, so my app.controller. So add a parenthesis, add a single quotes, and now we're going to type the name of our controller. So that would be my controller. You can name it whatever you want, it's up to you. So I'm just saying that it's my controller. And then it takes a function. So we type function and then add parentheses and then the code block and then close that with the parentheses. Now here inside the function, it takes a scope object. So we type a scope object. So scope. Now AngularJS built-in directives or built-in services have this dollar. So whenever you use this dollar, that means it's a built-in Angular thing. So we got the scope there, and then here I will type $scope. I will use that $scope, and then in the $scope object I will add something. So well, let's just say a message, and then is equal to, and then we type a string here. So here we just say hello world, and then I'm going to save this file. Now we have a module, we have the controller. Now we can go and attach this module to our index.html file. Now make sure that you have app.js here. That's how it's going to know that way to look for that module and then controller. So the module is a container for controller services directives. We can either add this to a body, which will cover whole application, or we can add a div here and define a module there. But we're gonna define that module in our body. So I'll just say ng-app is equal to, and then the name of our module, which was my app. Now within our body element, whatever we can type, that will be evaluated against our app.js file, and it will be executed inside angular.js file as well. So next we need a controller. So for the controller, we could either add a div, and then we just say ng-controller, and then the name of the controller, which was my controller, and then we close the div. So within this div, we have access to this controller scope object. So we have this scope object there. Then within this div now, we have that access to our scope object. So how do we use this message? Now to use the message, we can simply say in a binding expression. So in AngularJS, the binding expression is this curly braces, 2 curly braces. So if I type here message, and now I'm gonna save this, and then we're gonna look at it in our file. I'm going to refresh the page, and here we should see the value of the message variable. So here we have hello world. Now here I'm gonna just wrap it in h1, and then we can see a little bit bigger. So let's just go to app. Oops, this is the API. We're gonna go to app and refresh the page, and now we have a hello world, the value of the message. Now here, this is called a binding expression, and let's go back to app.js. Now we can have another, so let's just say scope dot second message. So message 2 is equal to welcome to AngularJS course with project. I'm gonna save this file, add a semicolon at the end. Let's go back to index.html, and now if I use that second message outside that div, so let's just say add a binding expression. We just say message 2, and we're gonna save this, and let's go back to our browser and let's refresh the page. And here we don't see anything. We don't see that message because that is not the part of this controller. So in this div, we have access to ng controller, so my controller, using this ng controller directive. And the reason why we write this outside, that we want to know that if AngularJS reads that or not. So if I just push this up inside our my controller div, and I'll just go back and then refresh the page, and now we see that message, welcome to AngularJS course with project. So now anything we do inside the controller, we will have to evaluate that inside our scope object within our my controller. Now I'm gonna modify our index.html file. We're gonna be developing a single page app later in the course, so we don't really have to use this div and then define our controller for this div. We can just access this div for our body element. So we'll do that now. So I'm just gonna delete this div, and I'm going to delete ng app directive as well from here. And instead of defining our module in a body element, we're going to do that on the top inside our HTML. So the whole HTML will have access to our module. So we do that. So ng app, and then we say my app. Now, don't get yourself confused with my app to this variable. This is not what we accessing. We accessing this my app. Whatever the name you type here, that's what you want to write inside the ng app directive. Now inside that, we're gonna using this same controller for the rest of our course. So we'll just do here ng controller, and then just say my controller. Now we can access both scope variables. So we just do binary expression message, and then we do message2 as well. I'm gonna save the file, and we go back to our page. Let's refresh it, and there you go. We got hello world, and then welcome to AngularJS course with project. And we go back here. I'm just gonna increase the size so we can look at it a bit better. So yeah, that's how you can define controller, and you have a scope object in it. In the next video, we're gonna talk about directives.